Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
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 Nothing back.
We've got some spaces in the room today, so please feel free to move up should you wish, and don't feel isolated at the other end of the room. But good morning, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Executive this morning, which also has our representations for education part, which is the first part of our agenda. If we can take apologies first, please.
Thank you, Convener. Apologies have been submitted by Councillor Deacon and I think also by Religious Representative Agnes Mullen.
Thank you for that. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Not a declaration of interest, just a transparency statement in relation to the community asset transfers for the Green Park and the Lauriston, the Thrums. I have been involved in signposting the various community groups in relation to that because they are in my ward, but I don't consider that it requires me to recuse myself.
Thank you for that. I should have said just at the start of the meeting, can I ask people to just check that they've got their mobile phones switched off or on silent? Gemma, you had your light on, sorry.
Yeah, it's not exactly a declaration because I don't vote, but I should just say I'm involved in teaching Blackness about Linlithgow marches, so I should just say that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
Yeah, similar transparency statement to Councillor Hannon in relation to Ayers Community Hall, which is up for asset transfer on the agenda today. I have also been involved in meetings and assisting in signposting, but I don't consider that that would mean I had to recuse myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears.
Yeah, similar transparency statement on various issues throughout the day as usually sought for advice by many different sections of our community.
I'm sorry, Councillor Spears, I think you would need to be a bit more specific because these are recorded. It can't just be on various items. I think you need to name the item.
Blackness.
Okay. Councillor Redman.
I wrote a letter for Bonnybridge Community Centre, so I think I'll recuse myself on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Similar to Councillor Hannah, just a transparency statement.
And Councillor Bowes.
Yes, again, I might as well transparency statement. Item 12, 8th Community Hall.
And Councillor Bundy.
It is regarding item 5 on the agenda, just that my employer, Stephen Kerr, MSP, has made public comment about his position, but his position does not necessarily influence me.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Buchanan.
Thank you. The same as Councillor Redmond, I put a supportive letter in for Bonnybridge Community Education Centre. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Mr Moody to perhaps look at the issue around the transparency statements so that people don't have to keep repeating those in some way and try to find a better way to deal with that.
Can I just speak? I'm happy to look at that general issue, Convener, and I wonder if I could just clarify with Bailey Buchanan in relation to his either transparency statement or declaration in relation to item 13. So just to confirm whether it's a declaration that he will recuse himself or is it a transparency statement?
Just a transparency statement. I'm not excusing myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just, before we go into the agenda proper, people will be aware that there has been a change to the agenda with an item withdrawn. I'm just going to turn to the Chief Executive to give a bit of context to that. Thereafter, it is no longer on the agenda, therefore not open to discussion.
Thank you, Convener. Morning, everyone.
So members, as you say, were advised of the withdrawal of item 6, Gaelic medium education, from the agenda. The reason for that briefly is I was contacted early in the week by Bord na Gaelic in relation to the proposal set out in the report, requesting an opportunity to meet and discuss the proposals in that report. They are, of course, the statutory body in relation to matters Gaelic. It wasn't possible to have that discussion in advance of today's meeting, and on that basis, I made the decision it was better to delay the report to allow that discussion to take place. And any relevant issues that flow from that discussion will be picked up in the report when it comes back to this committee in due course.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll now move in proper.
Convener, I have a question for the Chief Executive on that statement, if I may.
Councillor Murtagh, there was a Chief Executive's decision to withdraw. Items no longer open for discussion.
A point of clarification.
I'm moving on. Councillor Murtagh, I'm moving on.
That's fine. I would like it noted that I object to you moving on because I have a question to the Chief Executive and I think it's pertinent that I ask it, but I will find another way to ask it.
Okay, thank you. Move into the minute of the meeting held on the 23rd of January. Are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
We have the rolling action law.
I have a question on that minute.
Okay, Councillor Murtagh.
During the course of the items which we discussed, which were passed, I brought up the issue on the bulky waste uplift in relation to the EPIAs and the fact that they had not been completed in a manner in which I was confident was correct. Given that that has also been a significant factor in the withdrawal of items on this agenda and those EPIAs, can the Chief Executive give comment to assure the committee that all the EPIAs which are coming forward and tabled to the items that we are looking at now have been done correctly and through due process?
I think all officers, Convener, are very clear about the process to be followed in relation to EPIAs, and I think that's widely understood and widely followed right across the business of the Council. As I said before, there is always room for improvement. We continue to work on these issues, but I am confident in what we're bringing forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to the rolling action log. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Convener. And the rolling action log is before you for information, not for decision, and as usual records the decisions of the Executive where those call for further reports and just provides an expected reporting date and comments on the progress with the preparation of the report. It is, however, available for members to ask questions on the items on the rolling action log.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up if there's any questions in relation to the rolling action log. No, we're happy to agree.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, before I put the deputation to council, I'm just going to ask Mr. Reid just to give a point of clarification in relation to the report on Blackness.
Thank you. And this is regarding page 45 of the consultation report. That one of the responses for the consultation was made in error, indicating that it was representing the views of Bo'ness Community Council. This has since been clarified. It was not representing Bo'ness Community Council. It was the views of an individual representing the Bo'ness community. And to clarify, that the Bo'ness Community Council has no official position on the matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a request for a deputation to speak on the paper on Blackness. I'm duly asked to put that to committee to accept. Are we happy to accept?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Mrs. Bailey to come forward? Thank you, Jan. You've been through this a number of occasions. You know you've got up to 10 minutes and there's the opportunity for questions from members following that. So just whenever you're ready.
Morning. Thank you very much for letting me speak today, and thank you to the councillors that I've seen regarding this over the last few months. The school...
Sorry, Jan, apologies for interrupting you, but could you bring your microphone a wee bit closer so that we can hear you a little bit better?
Is that better?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, hopefully you heard the first bit, me thanking you for letting me speak today, and obviously to the councillors that have met with me and over the telephone had these conversations regarding our school. The school is the community, even though there has been a comment that it's not in the village. The school is the village. It brings us together through our extremely successful events. Along with the children going down to the village to do their beach cleans, soot pack visits to the older residents and the visits to the local businesses where they can interact and learn about different factors within Blackness and build their education around about the people that visit the castle. This does not happen in other schools. It will be maybe 1 or 2 people from each class that they don't get the opportunity that our children get. The process that has been this consultation has certainly had a lot of downs and ups. Our children taken into rooms by council workers that are not known to them and dangled carrots and even told them what school that they would attend when some children didn't even know that this process was happening. This has caused extreme anxiety amongst the children and the parents. Being made aware that the other children and families that should be using the school were contacted by telephone by pupil placement to advise that our school was closing. This has been a deliberate act to bring the school roll down over a number of years, which ties in with the recent news article and debate at Holyrood about SNP school closures. There is no doubt that education needs to make savings, but this shouldn't come at the cost of our school and the budget that has been inflated and deflated to make Blackness Primary School is astronomical. Where really this budget isn't factual. In over 3 papers, there has been ups and downs in figures, with one paper missing £62,000 in a matter of months. Nobody can still tell me where this has went. The £200,000 savings is absolutely ridiculous and no teachers are being made redundant. There is still going to be transport costs, there's still going to be eating costs, there's still going to be maintenance to the other school. Not even our grass gets cut by the council, we do that ourselves. The figure is something like £41,000 of a saving, and even when I look at the Grange's budget, it is also questionable. The catchment should be considered to have it reallocated out with the considerable amount of houses, 400 plus at the Bowness side and obviously at the other side at the fire station. It's going to take the capacity to the Grange of in the next few years to 122%, whereas Richard Teed in his forward planning, I can't understand how this has not been factored in. These children will be schooled in huts and this will have a fundamental impact on their education. There is no area within the Grange that can be extended to put on a proper building. The school role within Blackness will increase and will continue to increase, not only with catchment children, but with non-catchment children, because parents want to choose where they school their children. A vote to close our school is just not the right reason, and we should have let us grow and let our children have the best school life within Blackness.
Okay, thank you for that, Jan. I'll now open it up to members if there's any questions that they would wish to ask. No? Okay, well, thank you very much, Jan. You can go back to your seat. Oh, sorry, excuse. Councillor Spears.
Jan, could you elaborate on the pupil contact? This sounded very concerning, not just to the parents, but also to the elected members. So could you please expand on what was asked to the children? So,
yeah, there's, as it outlines in the report, there's 16 children that don't attend Blackness Primary. They did put pupil placement requests in and they were telephoned to advise that the school was closing, and that has happened for the last 7 years. Now, my understanding, pupil placement don't phone the email.
Well, I'm sure the Director of Education will want to address that question as well.
And Councillor Spears, as we move into the next part of the session, you have the opportunity to ask the Director on that.
Thank you, Convener.
Councillor Murtagh.
Thank you and good morning, Jan. I also had questions around the school, what you were saying in terms of the school admissions team. I think what you said was they were effectively contacting those who had enrolled their children in Blackness to advise that the school was imminently closing or being mothballed. Is that kind of accurate summary, just so I'm clear? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And okay, so I think, and you said that's been happening over a number of years, in your opinion?
Yes, yeah, one child would be in primary 7 by now.
All right, okay, so quite an extensive time. And were you saying that there was other activity, like, for example, at the within, because also children often go to nursery prior to going to Blackness?
Yes.
So was that something you were saying was also being discouraged at that kind of level?
Yeah, it's within our PTA minutes that the head teacher at the Grange will not promote Blackness Primary School. She refuses.
And what do you mean by not promote, as in?
Well, we're meant to be a shared headship, so we've asked that, like, can she speak to, can the people that work within the nursery, if they're talking about where's best for their child to go, can they have a conversation to say, you know, you can, Blackness Primary as an option? And that was, it wouldn't be in scope. It's not something that you do. And I understand that in most schools you wouldn't need to do that. There's not very many that have a shared headship, especially with a distance apart. But with our school, it's different.
I suppose that brings me on to questions about transition. You know, it's been some time since my children went from nursery to primary. Yep. But obviously the transition process and the programme between nursery and primary is very important and for children. So yes. Is there transition then between
yeah, there is transition. So if the children are leaving, say, the Grange nursery, going to Blackness, and they go for visits, the head teacher from Blackness will go down to the nursery and see that child within their own area and play in and interact with them. Same with if it's out with a different nursery. He's came out and he's seen them in different, and he's spoken to the teachers, asked them what it is that they like to do, interact with them. Again, our school is extremely difficult. It's extremely different to any school within the Falkirk area.
Okay, but there is a transition. So if the children are in the nursery at, you know, wherever they are, because they might not all be in the same place, but basically if they're in nursery at Grange, they would be encouraged to, you know, make links with Blackness Primary School if that's their catchment primary school, and still attend and transition. Okay.
And we invite them on the last day of, like, the sports day, to come along with their families, all their families, and experience meeting everybody and playing and going into the school and the pitch, and if we've got a bouncy castle or whatever to play.
Yeah, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, I mean, I would expect there to be a regular, you know, from my view, it's not just a case of, you know, on 1 or 2 days. It's more of a regular, you know, dialogue and transition, and you know, over a sustained period, even in some ways, you know, that awareness and anti-preschool of you going to that school. But that does happen.
It's not always up to the school. They can only do so much with the transition. It's to do with the parents in the transition working with the school. So if there's things happening, we will make sure that a pupil that is at Grange Nursery is invited along for days where it might be the activity days, mornings that they have with the crafts, or it might be the sports day, as I've said, or it might be the Easter event that we have, to come along and meet, so that they get used to the school, they get used to the layout, they see the teachers and they see the other children.
Right, okay. The other thing I wanted to clarify from your evidence, you were saying there that there were children being taken out of their class in Blackness to be spoken to by education officials about
Yes.
the closure. Can you
Yes.
tell me a bit more about what the context of that is and what sort of ages of children we're talking about and how that happened?
So the older children, the 4s and 5s, were taken with the pupil support worker because of additional support for one of the children. Obviously, she wasn't allowed to speak or make a view, but certainly there was things said to the children that they would make more friends, they would be at more events, more activities. When they went to the Grange, they then took the P1s and 2s and 3s into a room on their own and told one of the girls that she was going to the Grange and she didn't know anything about it, that her school was potentially going to be closing. So, and the same thing was said, that you'll make more friends, that you'll do more activities. It's not up to... We were told that they would come in, they would see the children in their own environment, maybe have a small conversation while they're working or their activities, and that didn't happen.
Okay, so what you're saying is that parents weren't aware at a sort of primary 1 to 3 level that their children were going to be I'm not going to say consulted because it's critical that children are consulted in every decision which affects them.
And they played a big part in this consultation period, but they don't know these people and they don't know who they are.
Okay, so the parents weren't aware when this was happening about the context of how it was happening.
Yep.
And you're saying that the parents and children were upset in regards to that.
The anxiety is just horrendous. One child wet the bed.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, and we can perhaps pick that up in question. I just wanted to understand the context of what you were kind of giving your evidence on. So I think most of the questions would then be for the director following that. Thank you. Thanks, Jan.
Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Mundy.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, Jan, for your deputation. At the beginning, you were talking about how the school is the community.
Yeah.
Could you go into more detail to explain that?
Yep. So when you come into Blackness, obviously the school is before the village. The village and the community come together more now with the school than anything else through our events, through the local businesses. They come to our events and likewise we go down to the village to interact with them. They've seen businesses grow and open and they've helped with that. The regular beach clean, so they're speaking to people and they regularly get asked what it is they're looking for, what it is that they're doing, how much waste there is, the education side about it, going along to the castle to try and work with them to see what's happening and understand the historical side of things. As I've alluded to, we have extremely popular events where we have Easter events that have had over 100 children. That's not including parents. Our nativity is opened up to everybody. Our coffee mornings, unfortunately, we didn't have a burn supper because of the weather this year. But yeah, the school is the community, and without the school, it's gone. There is nothing for the villagers to do. Everything's closed.
Well, thank you for that answer, Jan. And my second question is in reference to the capacity of Grange Primary School. You were quoting figures. Where do those figures come from? If
you look at one of the papers that tells you how many children there's going to be, when you add it up and do your maths, it's 122% it's going to be in the next 3 to 4 years.
Thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you for that. There's no other questions, so again, thank you again, Jan, for that. Okay, you want to take your seat. I will now open it up for questions in relation to the paper, having taken the paper as read. Councillor Sinclair.
Thank you, Convener. I think my first question comes on the back of some of the information we've heard there. Perhaps this is maybe for the Director. I wonder if you could explain out what the consultation process is in this situation and what the role the role that children play in this, who are subject to these decisions, but also what the role of staff are in deploying these consultations.
Thank you for the question. This is a statutory consultation process, but when executive granted approval to begin the consultation, it was asked at that point if we could do it in as human a way as possible, and so we added different and additional elements to the consultation this time. And I think that was as a result of a request from Councillor Murtagh. So there was an additional meeting. There was an additional meeting with the pupils, and prior to all of it starting, we also had an additional meeting with the Parent Council and members of the Management Committee. Now, staff guide the input of pupils into this. The head teacher would have spoken, the class teacher would have spoken, and the young people would have been invited to submit their reviews via a questionnaire and a paper exercise. As detailed in Appendix 11, and I draw your attention to that, it's very important, page 221 of the consultation, that describes the additional meeting that I had and that Deborah Davidson, Head of Education, had with the young people of Blackness. We had been down to the school previously. The head teacher had explained who we were and why we would be coming in to speak to them about the consultation as part of that process. And so they had seen this previously, but it's just part of our job that we are in and out of schools speaking with young people in an appropriate, and in this case, a very sensitive way. And as I say, the notes of that meeting are contained in page 221. The parents did know that we were going to speak with them. And again, I just draw your attention to the third sentence on page 221 that clarifies that. The young people, we weren't going there to tell them their school was closing. Nothing has been decided. We were going there to seek their views about what was positive about Blackness Primary School, and again that's detailed in Appendix 11. Some of them did offer information about the alternative schools that they would be going to if Blackness was to close, and we steered immediately away from that, focusing back in on Blackness and focusing in on the consultation process and what was worrying them at that time. All of those views would be fed into the consultation report that you have in front of you. I hope that's answered your question, Councillor.
Thank you, John. Convener, I've got one more question to ask on this. Now, I'm not sure, I seen that our teacher rep, John Chalmers, was on the call. I wonder if he's still there. He's dropped off the screen at the moment, but I know he's a very busy man in Bonnybridge. He's there. Thank you, John. John, I've got a quick question about the teaching, the delivery of education in small cohorts. And I wondered if you could give us your opinion, having experienced both, I think, small cohort and large cohort, what your professional view of the challenges and opportunities are, and how those compare between a setting like Blackness and Grange Primary, or a small primary school and a large primary school.
Sorry, Convener, can I ask a point of order? Is it competent to be asking questions to members of the committee, or is it not just questions to the officers who are the directors in the report?
And Councillor Murtagh is actually correct. It's questions to officers at the moment,
Okay.
Councillor Sinclair, but perhaps that one could be held back and Mr Chalmers can make a contribution when we go into open debate.
Thank you for that. Yep, no further questions.
Okay, if there are no more, I will do my best to see people in order, but I do have Councillor Spears next.
Thank you. Just to return to the question to the Director of Education. When these pupils were interviewed, were the parents asked to be present?
Thank you, Councillor Spears. No, that would not be the normal procedures. We're all the time, as part of our jobs and exercising our role, are in and out of schools and speaking with young people and in classrooms and in different situations. So no, they weren't. We are experienced and we know how to handle young people in this situation, particularly with the sensitivity that was required. But parents were informed that we would be doing that as part of the enhanced consultation process that was requested by elected member.
Have you had a follow-up with the parents now that you know there's been great distress caused by this?
It was part of the consultation process, and parents, as you've just heard, have fed their views into that and are reflected in the final consultation report that has been produced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a number of people looking to speak, and I apologise if I've missed anybody out. I will try and work through this accordingly, but please shout if you're then MPs if you're missed out. I've got Councillor Hannah next.
Thank you, Convener. I want to say thank you to Jan Fairley for her deputation, and the fact that I didn't ask any questions was not because of lack of interest. It was, we have had the conversations separately, and I fully understand the concerns of the parents about this whole situation and the whole process. But to ask of Mr. Reid a number of questions, Jan has raised questions about the savings, and it has been made clear that there will be no redundancies as a result of this if the school is closed. Could you please tell us how, given that staff costs is the major part of the cost of education, how is it that you envisage making savings, and how much of a saving does the Education Department think will be made?
Thank you. Well, there will be savings because every year there's natural turnover within the teaching workforce across Falkirk. So it's the wider picture that we're looking at here, and where those members of staff would be used to fill vacancies in other establishments, and that's where the saving comes from, because they're not having to be paid, and the cost attributed to Blackness Primary School, the cost would be attributed into vacancies across our wider estate.
Thank you for that. I have a couple of other questions, if that's okay. Jan has raised the question of the school roll for the Grange Primary School, and it is clear in the appendices that the school roll is likely to go above 100%. Could you please give us some more information about A, how these figures come about, and B, what the plans are to deal with that?
Thank you. Yeah, regarding the Grange Primary School role, what we're looking at here, just to refer members to, is pages 85 and 86 of the papers that you have in front of you. When we're projecting school roles, there's a number of factors that are always taken into account. One is the number of young people who we know are due to possibly enrol into schools in Primary 1, and that comes from the CHI data.
To speak later on.
All right, okay.
We
also.
Excuse me a wee minute. Can people make sure they're on mute, please? Thank you.
We also look at the historical patterns of placing requests into schools, and then we look at the impact of house building and how that may impact on school roles. So the information that's in the report on page 85 gives the projected roles as they currently stand without housing, and you'll see that there's actually a decrease in the role at Grange Primary School as the years go on. Primary schools can operate very well between 96-97% occupancy, and you can see that without housing the projected occupancy rates are far lower than that. And then when you look at page 86, there's projected school roles with housing. Now, that is based on all of the pupils from the new housing turning up at the school, and it does if they did do that, and it's very much crystal ball gazing at this case, because we don't know what types of families are going to move into the housing, and we don't know if they do or do not have children that they're moving in with that would be zoned into Grange Primary School. But if they all turned up based on the calculations that we use across our entire estate, then it would temporarily go above 100% occupancy rate. In order to deal with that, there are developer contributions which will be used to make amendments and alterations to Grange Primary School should we need to do that, and it's in the region of £2 million, so it's a significant amount of money. However, what I would say is that we do not anticipate all of the young people that are projected to go to Grange to turn up, and I'll just illustrate that with a point. Currently, the roll is round about 246 or thereabouts at Grange Primary School, but we know there are 383 children within the Grange catchment area that could have enrolled at Grange. But within Bo'ness, there's always a large number of placing requests made for a number of different reasons, historical reasons, family reasons, whatever it is, a large number of placing requests made in the Bo'ness community for young people to move between the primary schools in Bo'ness. So over the last 5 years, the average enrolment rate of those that are eligible to enrol into Grange Primary School is 55%. 10% choose to enrol into a denominational primary school, and 26% on average enrol into other Bo'ness schools. So we do not anticipate the projected numbers increasing the occupancy to an extent that we would have to make alterations, although there is capacity there to make the alterations with the funding from the developer contribution should we need to do so.
Thank you very much. That clarifies that bit. Another question I have is related to the consultation with the children. I know that during the learning hours consultation, there were concerns raised by parents about the way in which the consultation with children was being undertaken, and as a result, the parents were able to opt out of that consultation, opt their children out, sorry, of that consultation. In relation to this consultation with the local children, did any of the parents raise issues about the meeting? You say that they were all informed that there was going to be that consultation. Did any of the parents ask that their children be not involved in that consultation or raise issues about it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Councillor Garner, you're next.
Thank you, Convener. My question's kind of been added in with Councillor Hannah's there, but just John or Mr McNeill maybe has asked, what's the capacities of the school within within Bo'ness, sorry. Apologies for that, Philip.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Garner. At the moment, the capacity of the school is 287 pupils for Grange Primary School. That's the capacity, and the occupancy this session is sitting at 86%. And it's projected to decrease over each of the next 5 years to 76% if you do not take the comments that I've made earlier about house building and placing requests into account.
Sorry, do we have the other Bo'ness schools? Do you have that at hand at all?
The capacity of the other Bo'ness primary schools, yeah. They are well, I don't have the figures to hand for detail, but I can provide that. But what I would say is they are well under capacity. Across the primary estate, the capacities in Falkirk are around 70%, and that's reflected within the Bo'ness community as part of that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, convener. I've got a number of questions. The first one I want to pick up on is about the statement that was made right at the start of this, before the deputation, in regards to the Bo'ness Community Council's view being, I think it was described as neutral, or they haven't taken a view, they haven't taken a position on this. And obviously that is different to what we saw in the paper, which in the paper it was that they were in favour of the closure of Blackness Primary School, which when reading the papers is obviously something which elected members would take note of. Can I ask about the circumstances of that? Because one of the things I'm concerned about in terms of the overall consultation is how that came to be, because I would obviously, if there's been no validation or verification of the input into the consultation, you know, it kind of gives me some concerns about the validity of the process of the whole consultation, to be honest. So how did that come about, that we've got a report that says that Bo'ness Community Council are in favour of it when they're not?
Thank you. I think I've already provided a response to that, but I'll ask my colleague Kenny McNeill, Resource Manager within Children's Services, to add some further detail to that to clarify the point. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. The people who responded to the consultation were asked to indicate on what grounds they were responding, what part of the community they were responding, whether they were a parent, whether they were part of a community organisation. And the individual who replied, who indicated they were representing Bo'ness Community Council, actually wasn't representing Bo'ness Community Council. And the process that we used was that the consultation report, in essence, lay in state for 3 weeks prior to being referred to this committee, and it allowed folk to add comment to what's stated in the consultation report. And thankfully, on this occasion, that comment was addressed, and clearly the Bo'ness Community Council have no formal position on this. So it was down to an individual ticking a box on the online return. I think moving forward, the officers will be concerned or diligent to identify that in future and try and stop something like this happening again.
Thank you. And I should just add to that the Community Council Chair was in touch to clarify they have no official position on the matter, and the individual that responded was contacted just to establish the circumstances, and he apologises for any confusion caused and clarified that he was responding on behalf of the Bo'ness community and not the Community Council.
Okay, I understand that, and I'm grateful for those answers. My question is more about the process, and obviously, you know, there's always mistakes. That's fine. You know, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes. Hold your hands up. But the problem is, from my point of view, is the process. If it's appeared in a report, and that report is what we have to go on, and we're influenced by at the time that we put in motions, etc., by deadlines, we're only getting this information now. But my point is, my question is, in terms of the verification process, because we don't have everybody individually's comments in the report, I would expect that, given we know all the names of the community councillors in Bo'ness, because we administer those elections, that would have been checked. And if we don't have a process of checking, then I suppose it's just how do we know, if there's no verification of anybody who inputs the data into that consultation, how do we know that that people are responding in that manner in which they say they are, if we don't have any verification process?
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. That would be true of any council consultation. We obviously use the Participate Plus platform, and obviously users have to be registered when they're using that platform, but all of the responses that were provided are indeed detailed from the online survey in Appendix 8, which is from page 141 onwards. I've clarified for the benefit of members that the Community Council has no official position and that the views that were attributed to the Community Council are indeed attributed to an individual who is representing, in his words, the Bo'ness community.
Okay. I think my question about the school role, I mean, and specifically the school role at Blackness, because looking at the trends, I think the biggest question for me to understand is that at the moment it seems to meet the criteria our criteria for catchment children, and there's a position over a number of years. But what's puzzling is this phenomenon about catchment children not sending their children to Bo'ness, and that actually if we had all the catchment children send to Blackness, apologies, if we had all the children that were entitled going to Blackness, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So can you give more detail about what the consultation has uncovered or what discussions have uncovered as to why that is? And then I'll have a follow-up.
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. I can clarify that. There are 10 catchment pupils currently attending Blackness Primary School in primaries 1 to 5, but there are 26 potential primary 1 to primary 7 pupils indicated in the CHI data. None of the missing 16 pupils are in CMIS as registered as attending another Falkirk school. What we do know through discussion with our colleagues is that there are a number of young people, 14 attending primary schools within West Lothian, and the other 2 we don't have information from, and really this is down to the fact of parental choice, that parents can submit a placing request to any school in any authority that they want their child to attend. And if there are no grounds for refusal for that placing request, then it has to be accepted, hence why those pupils and those families have made a decision to attend school elsewhere. For whatever reason that is, we don't know, and we wouldn't be able to ask that. Okay.
So the children who don't go to, that are catchment children that don't go to Blackness, they don't go to other Falkirk schools. They are not enrolled at the Grange then?
No, they're not.
No. Because I suppose I'm concerned in terms of a question about the evidence that's been given, which you'll have heard, in terms of pupils who are at Grange at nursery level being discouraged from enrolling in Blackness Primary School. And I think it's important if we can have a bit more clarity on that, because I think what was said is that that there were conversations and phone calls from the admissions department, which would seem an irregular thing to happen, to try to almost discourage enrolment in Blackness because the school might be closing for etc., which I know is something the Scottish Government have come very heavily down on as being not something that they would look favourably on in terms of that impression being created. So can you elaborate what the process is about discouraging children from enrolling in their catchment school in case it might close?
I certainly can. Thank you for the question. And that would be, if that was the case, that would be a very serious and unacceptable situation to take place. And had that been happening for a number of years, then the result of that would have been that there would be no current children in Blackness Primary placed there as a result of a placing request, and that's not the case. There are currently 6 pupils in Blackness through the result of a placing request from primaries 1 to 5, and it's actually 5 because one has moved out to attend school elsewhere, and we've just approved 1 placing request for next session into primary 1. There are no other enrolments at the moment into primary 1. What I would say is that there's one person that deals with admissions into and placing requests into our across our estate and into our teams. No school promotes other schools because the assumption is that young people will attend their catchment school. But the placing request process, which is got very clear guidelines, exists to allow parents to make another choice. We always like to establish what the intent of parents is, and placing requests are not guaranteed. So the advice that would have been given is that if you are making a placing request, in the event that we are unable to approve it, you should also make an enrolment request for the catchment school. So that is the process, and it is categorically incorrect that a member of our admissions team has been contacting parents to tell them otherwise about the school because nothing has been decided. But as I say, I think that's evidenced in the number of placing requests that are currently in the school and the placing request that has just been approved. Thank you.
I'm grateful for the answer, and obviously I have to ask the question because the matter has been brought up, and it wouldn't be appropriate if I didn't ask the question, because we have to understand the evidence that's being given to us. I think, just to clarify, I wasn't really referring to those from placing requests, I was referring to catchment children, but I think your answer at the end stands in terms of the process. The catchment children to Blackness being discouraged from enrolling in their own catchment school, but I think you've clarified that that would not be part of the process, and it would be very serious if it was. And I can only take the evidence which you're giving me at that is correct, and that's the process, and that's borne out in the report. However, I think finally the questions which were brought up in evidence in terms of the consultation with the children, and as you know, I feel very strongly that children should always be consulted on matters which affect them, and indeed it would be completely inappropriate if they weren't, and against the UNCRC. But there has been questions raised as to, as you know, in Article 12 of the UNCRC, we're talking about being consulted in an appropriate manner relative to age and stage. And I suppose you've outlined in previous answers that you feel that there was an appropriate to age and stage, and that all parents did know that their children would be consulted on, and that you've said, if you can just clarify, that you did not speak with children to give them new information about the benefits that they might get if they moved to another school, and try to encourage them in such a way. It was about consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. It was absolutely about consultation, and again, that's detailed, and I'll just highlight it again on page 121 in Appendix 11. And I would add that the children, we spent some time in the class with them before we separated into two groups, age and stage groups, and the children were relaxed, and they spoke very freely and openly about Blackness and about their involvement in other things outside of Blackness Primary School, and the sort of things they liked about Blackness Primary School. The only thing that they were asked about was, if there was going to be a change, what would worry you? And all of that is detailed, and all of that is mitigated as well in the report.
Okay, I'm grateful for the answers. I think it's just important to note that it is at odds with the evidence that we've been given, and that's something that which we have to weigh up. So I'm grateful for the answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go to Bailey Kerr.
Thank you very much, convener. Some of the questions have already been asked, so there'll not be so many. Can you tell me how many schools are in Blackness, Mr. Reid?
Yeah, I can. There are six schools in Blackness, including an RC.
Okay.
I'll just give you some information as well, just which adds to one of the answers I gave earlier. Blackness Public Primary School is operating at 53% capacity. occupancy, apologies. Deanburn is 69% occupancy, Grange is 86% occupancy, Kinneil is 76% occupancy, and we also have St Mary's, which is operating around 50% occupancy.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms Farrell mentioned figures that they are not correct. Can you expand on that, please?
Thank you, I can. Is this in relation to the finances or in relation to the role?
Finances.
Finances. So if I draw your attention to page 54 of the consultation document, and what I can confirm is that the costings which were contained in the proposal paper, which you have all seen, are verified and are 100% accurate based on the staffing allocations to the school and the shared headship arrangements that take place between Blackness and Grange. But on page 54, it details where this issue arises, and that the original paper which submitted had a slightly inflated figure and an incorrect costing. The paper was then withdrawn, primarily due to the UK general election at the time, and it was resubmitted in September with the correct costings, and it was due to an internal accounting error, but has since been verified based, as I say, on the staff allocations of the school, and all of that is explained in detail on page 54.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. With regards to the pupils that are there at the moment, have you got the details of what age group are in each? How many is in primary 1, how many in primary 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
Right, thank you. There are, again, this is contained on page 71 of the proposal, but there are 4 young people in primary 1, 4 in primary 2, although that's down to 3 now because 1 has transferred elsewhere, 2 in primary 3, 3 in primary 4, 3 in primary 5, and 0 in primary 6 and primary 7 respectively. And that has been the case, that there have been no young people in primary 6 and 7 for the last 2 or 3 years, so no pupils have transitioned to Bo'ness Academy.
That was going to lead on to my next question. So how well do they transfer to Bo'ness Academy? Can you explain why they only get to primary 5 and then they go forward, if you can?
No, I can't explain that. I think anecdotally what I would say is that obviously parents can make a choice and can choose to enrol their children in other schools through the place and request process. Anecdotally, it may be that some young people leave and go to schools in West Lothian or private education in Edinburgh, but I'm not basing that on any factual information, just on information that staff tell me. What I would say is that obviously if you are 1 or 2 in a group in primary 7 and you transition to a much larger school, I mean, transitioning to high school is a big thing. It's a very worrying time for young people. But in the main, most people have the security of their peers in that age range around them to be able to make that transition successful. And secondary schools will always work with primary schools to put the appropriate arrangements in place so that there's an appropriate transition. But it is one thing going from a class of 30 or 60 into a larger year group in a secondary environment, and it is a different experience from going from being the only person or 2 people transitioning into a year group of say 180 at Bowness Academy, although the primary school and the secondary school would take account of that. So that would be the experience in the programme we would put behind transition. I think it is important to say, though, that when we spoke to the young people, they told us about the activities that they were involved in outside of school and the different types of extracurricular activities, and how they were mixing with other people in the Bowness community and in other Bowness primary schools through the different activities they were involved in at the evenings and the weekends.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Well, I never thought about this question, but is there any data that these pupils that miss 5 and 6 and 7 go to any other schools in Falkirk? Or do we know?
No, we don't have that total information, because once they, if they leave the local authority, then we don't know where they go to. So if they don't complete primary 6 and they don't complete primary 7, we don't know where they go to. What I do know is that in terms of secondary, 4 of the young people, and this is out with the 26 P1 to P7 people. So in terms of secondary pupils that we are aware of, 4 of them attend Linlithgow Academy and 1 of them is at Winchborough Academy.
Thank you. Probably my final question is regarding small school. Surely it's not all bad being a small school. So what are the benefits and what are the drawbacks?
Thank you, Bailey Kerr, and I'll maybe ask my colleague Deborah Davison to add to what I'm going to say. Part of this proposal, and the major part of this proposal, was about producing an EBS, or an education benefits statement. And in the education benefits statement, we identified numerous benefits: improved educational opportunities to a broader peer group, teaching expertise, more diverse learning experience, and enhanced social opportunities. And importantly, those benefits were corroborated individually by Education Scotland, and the report is contained as one of the appendices. We have made it very clear in the report that the young people are having many positive experiences at Blackness Primary School, but it is our view, through composing the education benefits statement, that we think they would get an enhanced experience attending a larger school with more peers. And we have to balance that to make sure that every single young person in Falkirk, all 21,000 of them, whatever the exact number is, have a good experience within the resources we have. So part of the report is obviously fitting in to our learning estate, review. And I'll maybe just ask Deborah Davidson, who is more of an expert in primary, to add her comments on small schools within
Morning. I think John has probably covered the main themes, and I think again it's important to reiterate we recognise the positive experiences that are given at Blackness. The relationships are strong, the smaller environment, the sense of community, and some of the activities that have been outlined this morning that are taking place. And I think it's also important to recognise the work that will take place to replicate some of those and ensure that sense of community for Blackness is not lost, for example, through the work of a shared parent council, but also being responsive to the individual communities should the children transfer to Grange, and the head teacher has identified that. In relation to some of the drawbacks, there is one class covering a wide multi-composite age and stage group within Blackness, with one teacher predominantly responsible for delivering the whole curriculum and all experiences, while supported with a different teacher for one day and 2 specialists delivering some of the curriculum. The one teacher is responsible for that, which brings challenges and quite a large workload for that teacher, planning to ensure the needs of all children are being met from primary 1 to 5, ensuring that there's appropriate support and challenge. Within a primary classroom, we deliver learning in quite a number of different ways. For example, whole class activities, group activities, as well as individual activities. Now, across a multi-stage class, individual activities will be more prominent, and particularly because there is not always that appropriate peer group for the children to work together, to work collaboratively, to challenge each other, to work at an age with another peer who has the same skills or abilities. For example, across the curriculum in PE, a primary 5 child working with a primary 1 is quite different, and that would be the same in some of the discussions or exploration of different topics that they would focus on. Obviously, within Grange, we have a larger staff group, which brings a wider range of experience, but also interests of teachers and how they work together to deliver wider experiences as well as that core curriculum. That opportunity we mentioned for working with appropriate peers at an age and stage appropriate, that would be far enhanced at Grange, and the children may be in a composite class, but no more than 2 stages in one classroom. And we do recognise that the classes would be larger than the current class within Blackness, but again, there would be a wider number of children working at the same ability and at the same stage within the learning that would allow for that planning to be done more effectively by teachers. Alongside the learning and education, I think those social opportunities must be recognised within Grange. John mentioned the transition to secondary school. Given the current pupil role within Blackness, the next transition to Bowness would have resulted in a gap of 5 years since a Blackness pupil transfers to Bowness. So in relation to knowing people or knowing peers or being in a classroom with someone, they recognise that could be quite challenging. As I say, there may be composite classes in Grange, but they would be smaller stages. That appropriate support and challenge and even the questioning by teacher can be more appropriately pitched when there is not such a wide age range within a class. Also, the learning spaces, we have spoken about Blackness and the richness of the environment, those outdoor spaces, the community. But again, there are a number of resources that have been developed and committed to by staff and the school at Grange that will allow recognition of breakout spaces or individual spaces that are required for perhaps children with additional support needs, and how the expertise of staff can support not only a transition to a different school if that's the decision, but also the access to learning and emotional well-being that will also be delivered within Grange.
Thank you very much. And when you say that, I can't add much to what John says, but you feel rattled, don't you? But thanks very much, both of you, for your questions. Thank you.
You can't complain about getting full answers, Billy Kelly. Okay, Councillor Redmond, you've waited very patiently.
Thanks. A wee bit like following on from what Billy Kerr said, I had a lot of questions there, but I think Deb answered just about half of them. So just maybe follow-ups. You'd said that one of the students in the year group had dropped out. Could you just confirm the live school role just now, what level it's at?
Thanks, Councillor Redmond. It's 15.
15, right. The composite classes was kind of covered, but when these class students go to Bowness, will it be an additional class, or they'll be able to be accommodated within the existing classes at Grange School?
Thanks, Councillor Redmond. It will depend if a decision is taken and the decision of parents, but if they are moving to Grange Primary School, they would be accommodated in existing classes.
And if, not prejudging it, but if it did go ahead today, would there be a sort of integration and transition period for the students, and could you describe how you would go about that?
Yeah, the schools are used to at various points in the year of young people joining the school community, and we'll make sure there's an appropriate transition programme. And what we've committed to, and again, that's in the consultation report, is that we'll make sure that there is an enhanced transition from the pupils at Blackness moving to Grange. Now, obviously, some of the staff are already familiar with the young people. They may be familiar with Grange Primary School themselves, but the head teacher would make sure that there's appropriate plans in place to remove any anxiety and to remove any worries that the young people have got.
Thanks. And then just on the next part, there's obviously the community hall and there's community events. If a decision was taken to for closure today, would there still be support for the community hall and community events going forward?
Thanks, Councillor Redmond. I think there are two responses to that. First of all, Grange Primary School would serve the catchment area from where the pupils come from. So actually, in some of the activities, there's a great opportunity, like the beach cleans or the soup packs or whatever it is. There's a enhanced opportunity to get a larger number of young people involved in that, because the joint parent council would make sure that activity can take place. We have committed to supporting the community hall for a period of 3 years. Currently, the education pays the management committee a fee of around £5,200 per year for use of the school hall during the day, so they have their lunches or various other activities. And what we've said and detailed in the report is that we will have conversations with the management committee, but we will make the initial commitment of maintaining that payment for a period of 3 years. And therefore, the community activities from parents and other members of the community and the young people who live in that community can continue to use that facility to do some of the activities that were described.
Thanks. And I suppose Deborah had sort of touched on this next one, but could you talk about the facilities that's currently available at Blackness and how they compare to the facilities at Grange, whether it's PE, ICT, different areas of the school? Could you maybe touch on that?
Of course. So at Blackness, obviously the children are predominantly based in one classroom, but within the school they have breakout spaces that they can access perhaps the younger children in relation to play activities. They have a library that's been developed. They have outdoor spaces and obviously they access the community as well as other things. That would be replicated in Grange Primary School. The classes are all obviously identified for the different stages. Grange have a number of breakout spaces they have committed resource to and staff to. So that's predominantly focusing on emotional well-being and additional support needs for the children. So they have a nurture space, they have developed a low sensory space, they have a dedicated games hall where PE can be delivered within the school. They have a dedicated library, and they have a learning support room where children may go to participate in group activities. So the identified breakout spaces have all been used in Grange that could replicate what is available in Blackness, as well as quite an extensive playground area and outdoor learning space in Grange as well.
Thanks. And then my next question was, obviously Blackness School, it's a really local school. It's quite nearby where they stay. Could you talk about how a lot of the students currently get to school and how that would
Yes, so through the consultation, obviously it has been raised that some children do walk and cycle to school, but there are a number already in Blackness who are transported by parents. Obviously, at place and request, transport is not provided for, but we do have some children who travel to school by bus. So transport would be provided for Blackness pupils to travel to Grange, so it wouldn't be the responsibility of the parents to ensure children arrive at Grange Primary School. So there would be a journey that would be undertaken by the pupils across all our schools in Falkirk. There are many children transported by bus, and the length of journey anticipated from Blackness pupils to travel to Grange would be well within the expected journeys for a number of our children across schools, and it would be shorter than a number of our pupils who also currently travel to school by bus. But transport would be provided for Blackness pupils to journey to school at Grange.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Redmond. Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, Convener. Just a couple of questions for you, John. As you know, I've got serious concerns regarding the proposal that's in front of us today, and we have discussed it on numerous occasions now. Can you maybe just confirm why this has been brought forward in isolation? You've already highlighted the fact that a lot of our primary schools are well under occupancy levels. It's also the same situation in a lot of our high schools, Grangemouth High School being a prime example, which is sitting at just over 600 at the moment, very low. What plans do you have going forward for a major rezoning exercise here in Falkirk? Because there seems to be serious issues that we're not dealing with at the moment. It's not just Blackness.
Thank you, Councillor Nimmo. We're at this stage today for historical decisions that have been taken by the Executive, by the Council. When the discussions first started, it was around mothballing Blackness Primary School due to the historical low roll. At the time, the Council decided not to mothball, and taking into consideration parental views that the school roll would grow. So the Council allowed a degree of time for that to happen. And we were obviously requested to bring back a report, and all the processes then followed that the roll hadn't grown. And when there is unanimous decision against mothballing, the right thing to do and what's laid down is to move to the statutory consultation process, which was what was agreed here. So that's the reason that we have gone through that process. Across our estate in primary, there are declining roles, much of following the same pattern that's happening across Scotland, both within primary and secondary. And that's why we are embarking upon a learning estate review that will make sure that our schools are fit for purpose, that they're suitable, and that they're modern and they're efficient and all the rest of it. And that learning estate review is starting. It will look at occupancies, it will look at building condition surveys, and then it will propose a series of recommendations out of that, which will come forward at the appropriate time. Grangemouth High School does have a small school roll, but the occupancy is 70%, and both primary and secondary occupancies will be incorporated together as part of that learning estate review. And what we want to do is to give young people the best possible experiences in terms of their education within the resources that we have available to us.
So why couldn't Blackness Primary School be included in that major plan going forward? Like I said, it's been dealt with in isolation. Why couldn't it be included in the review?
Thank you. It's to do with the timing of when the discussions took place with the mothballing and the subsequent request to carry out a statutory consultation exercise. But it is the first stage and the first cog, if you like, in the wider learning estate review, and that's an important part of it.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Devine.
Well, all my questions have been answered, but I just wanted to thank Jan for coming along for the deputation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. I do have a further question regarding the placing requests. I've heard John's answer saying that nobody was told not to go because the school was facing closure. But if a parent was to put forward a placing request, would the council have a responsibility to tell them that the school might be facing closure because it's near the mothballing level?
Thank you, Councillor Bundy. That wouldn't be the primary role of our admissions team, our admissions person. They would make sure that there was enrolment within the catchment school specified, and they may have alerted the fact to the parent that there's a statutory consultation underway. But I can't clarify that, and I would very much doubt that that was the action that was taken. It would have been around making sure that there was an enrolment into the catchment school as well.
Thank you for that answer. So we've heard the deputation by Jan, but I've also had people from Blackness email me with the same accusation. So why would parents from Blackness be saying the same thing if that's not what the council has been doing?
Well, we've clarified with the admissions officer as to whether or not that has taken place, and she confirms it has not taken place. The only thing I can assume is that there has been a confusion between the need to ensure that there's a enrolment in the catchment school in the event that a placing request was not approved, because placing requests are not approved automatically. They're judged on merit, and in terms of enrolling primary ones, they're done in bulk volume in the timelines that are set out by education.
Thank you, John. In a more holistic point, the Council of the Future Plan, one of the three top priorities is stronger communities. In Jan's deputation, we have heard how the school is the community, to quote. So wouldn't this be going against the Council of the Future Plan?
No, I don't think that it would. It's also about equity and promoting educational attainment and opportunities. And I think we've set out in the report, in the education benefit statement, the positives and the advantage that the move would take place. But it's also taking account of the fact that we need to give young people the best experience possible within the resources that we have available to us as an authority.
Thank you. Isn't it a fact that in a more sparse area, the cost per head is going to be more?
Sorry, could you just clarify that?
Isn't it a fact that in a more sparse area, the cost per head is going to be more just because there's a lower number of pupils?
Thanks, Councillor Bundy. That's not always the case. We have 8 rural schools, or 8 accessible rural schools with low numbers of pupils, and the cost per head, because of the occupancy, is not as high as what it is in Blackness, and it ranges. There's a range of costs. Our next smallest school, and the figures I have in front of me, our next smallest school would be Drumbowie Primary School, where the cost per head is £12,000 to the average of six and a half, compared to the figures that are have been published for Bowness. But all of that will be looked at within the Learning Estate Review as well, to make sure that we are working within the resources that we have available for us.
Thank you for that answer. And my final question is regarding the benefits that have been highlighted in the report. When you were talking about them, John, you stated that it is a view, and quoting that word view, it is an opinion and not a fact, that the things in the report about the benefits.
I think it's based on professional responsibilities and expertise from those that were involved in conducting the review. and it's also been corroborated with the expertise and the independent report from Education Scotland.
With their opinion, with their expertise, but it is an opinion on judgment. It's not a fact, it's an opinion based on their experience and expertise, to use your words.
It is an opinion, yes, but I would also point out that we've been very clear in the report about some of the experiences that the young people are getting at Blackness, and this proposal is not seeking to take away and recognise that fact.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. And our final speaker for questions is Councillor Patterson.
Convener, I'm sure you'll be delighted to hear that my entire line of questioning has been covered in discussions, so happy to sit this one out.
Okay, thank you. I think there's been a really good opportunity for questions. So we will now go to the report, and I'll go to Councillor Sinclair.
Thank you, Convener. And thanks for everybody for their contributions this morning so far. I think the discussion and the debate, well, the discussion, the question has been quite enlightening. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the difficulty and challenge that the conversation over the future of Blackness Primary School has posed over a considerable period of time. Proposals to close schools are always going to be highly emotive, and communities with the strength and spirit, such as that which can be found in Blackness, are right to ask questions and hold decision makers accountable where they feel it is necessary. These discussions, however, must be pragmatic and based on fact, and I'd like to thank everyone who has engaged in such a manner over the course of this process. I'd also like to give my thanks to all the staff and pupils at Blackness and Grange Primaries for their engagement on this too, and let them know that any decision being made today will have you all and your outcomes at the very heart of it. My thanks also goes to officers who have led on the process and brought this report forward, particularly to Kenny McNeill and Deborah Davidson, and for all of the detailed answers to today's proceedings, which, in my opinion, have brought a significant amount of clarity on the process, on the educational benefits, and have elevated the discourse in this committee. Turning to the report before us, this has been a robust statutory process with every avenue explored. I'm grateful to Education Scotland and their comments on this matter contained within their report, which is attached to Appendix 9 in our papers too. Whilst there is an inequity between cost of education delivery, we have also heard some of the challenges and opportunities and the differences between delivering education to a mix of pupils in the one class of differing ages and stages in a small cohort when compared to larger cohort learning. Whilst the quality of education at Blackness is equal to that in other places, I fully believe that the experiences and opportunities which would be available to children by moving to Grange will be enhanced. That's not to say that there are no opportunities currently, but learning beside a significantly increased number of peer age and stage pupils represents an improvement from current experiences. That which we have heard this morning in terms of beach cleans, visits, events, and importantly community should absolutely continue, but with more pupils being able to engage who are currently placed at Grange, meaning that the community of Blackness will benefit from that connection between the wider Bo'ness communities. I believe fully that moving to close Blackness Primary School is the right decision for everyone involved. And it's the right decision for the whole of Falkirk when we move towards a full learning estate review, which has been mentioned in the very near future. I move the officer's recommendations in the report. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. And a second. Councillor Devine.
From the second.
Thank you for that. There is no amendment, therefore there is no debate, but there's an opportunity for groups and independents to see why they've not brought forward an amendment. I'll go to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I would echo what has been said about this having been a very challenging process, a very challenging decision. I've agonised over it, as I'm sure has everyone else. I want to say thank you to Jan for her passionate deputation earlier on, and I absolutely understand the views of the parents who have chosen to send their children to Blackness. But having looked at all the papers, visited the schools, talked to many, many people, I find that overall I'm not convinced that there are educational benefits or financial benefits in keeping the school open, and I feel unable to support that decision. I do understand that there may be other issues about the community, and I also think it would have been preferable if this was part of a wider review, but we've had it explained as to why that's not the case. So we have no amendment, but our hearts go out to the families who will be unhappy about the decision.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hannah. Bailey Kerr?
Would it be possible to have a quick recess, because there is a material change in the report regarding what Councillor Murtagh mentioned about the Bowness Community Council, so we would request a recess for a couple of minutes.
If we can have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, can we come back into the meeting, please? Okay, I'm going to go to Mr. Moody to just take us through where we are.
Yes, thank you, Convener. And the issue raised before the adjournment by Bailey Kerr relates to the issue of the implication of new information coming to light during a discussion in the course of either questioning or presentation by officers. And the implication is in relation to the requirement to submit amendments 2 days prior to the meeting, which is a matter set out in Standing Order 20 of your standing orders. Now, there is a provision within the standing orders which would allow an exception to that requirement where new information comes to light during discussion or debate and subject to the consent, in this case, of the convener. So maybe to say two things about that. In relation to new information, I think by implication that means information which couldn't have been obtained otherwise in advance of the meeting. So it doesn't mean information that's new to the councillor in question. It means genuinely new information that wasn't known. I think also by implication it means something which is material to the discussion, so something that is weighty enough to have impact. So in relation to that issue, I think it's probably fair to say that the issue on the Community Council is new. The question then rises, is it material enough to invoke the circumstances of this standing order? Now, that ultimately will be a decision for the convener of the meeting. And one observation I would make, though, is that it's one piece of information in a large array which has been presented to the executive this morning, and just simply to observe as a matter of fact that the papers before you on this item alone stretch to 220 pages. So that is an issue, I think, to be taken into account in assessing materiality. I think it's also important to say, though, that it is open to Bailey Kerr and his group, whatever the convener rules in relation to the issue I've just set out in relation to late amendment, that if the ruling were to be that this is not a circumstance where a late amendment can be allowed, it is open to Bailey Kerr to indicate that his group do not support the proposal in front of the committee. And in those circumstances, that would mean that there was no general agreement to the proposal. So the end point of the contributions from the other group leaders and independent members would be that we would require to vote. So there would be a vote for or against the motion which has already been moved by Councillor Sinclair. So by either route, and depending what Bailey Kerr goes on to say and what the convener has to say, there will be an opportunity for the committee to vote.
Okay, thank you for doing that, Colin. I think it was just helpful to have that explained. My view is I don't believe that the information shared today in relation to the Bo'ness Community Council aspect is material. I think, as has been indicated, that the volume of information and the work that has gone through is significant, and I don't believe that particular change from support to being neutral in their view on the proposal has any impact at all on the information that is before us today. I'll go to Bailey Kerr.
Thank you very much, convener. And thank to Mr. Moody for his advice. Listening to Mrs. Jan Farley, in our deputation and the information that we received in the report that Bowness Community Council, the comment wasn't from them, but stating in the report, we think we have been incorrect. We think that is a material consideration. And I take on board your view, convener, but the Conservative group will be voting against the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gardner, there's still no formal amendments. We're not moving into debate. It will just
No, this is on that point. It's a point that the Mr. Moody made in relation to the Conservative group being consulted on this and agreeing to this. It's a question to Bailey Kerr if he's actually in fact consulted the rest of his group.
I don't think that's. I don't think you can answer that, Bailey Kerr. To be fair, that's up to you to manage your group. Okay, I will go to any of the independents if they wish to explain why they've not brought forward any amendment, but remind that it isn't, there isn't a debate. Councillor Murtagh.
Thank you, Convener, and I think, as was echoed by others, this is an incredibly difficult matter for us to consider, and one that I am no stranger to, having had to make a decision to be part of a decision to close a school in my own ward, which also removed the last vestiges of any kind of community activity within that ward. So I understand the position that Blackness find themselves in, and I find it really regrettable that we have to consider these things at all, but unfortunately we do. I would just say that I know that other independent members, in particular Councillor Anne Ritchie, feel very strongly against the closure and for those sorts of reasons, and that additional house building in the area would potentially bring the school roll above even where it is just now within catchment. But that notwithstanding, the reason I haven't brought forward an amendment is because I couldn't find within the report enough where I could write a motion to bring forward against closure from the information which was within the report, which we have to base our decision making on. And I do feel myself, in terms of the education, I do agree in terms of the education's benefit statement on a personal level, that I do think it will widen opportunity. But I also think that it is really important that parents have the right to choose. And I think I am concerned in some of the information that I have heard today. I'm concerned where I don't know what Bailey Kerr might have brought forward, because I have no amendment to base that on. But what I'm concerned about is that there is new information. It's not so much the material change of the one specific thing that Bowness saying that they are, Bowness Community Council saying they are neutral. It's in understanding the whole basis of the consultation and having confidence in all the information, that therefore that is a huge body of information in which I'm partly basing my decision. And if I'm not sure about the validation and verification within that, and haven't had time to do so because I've only understood it today, then I feel uncomfortable in the basis of my decision making, despite my own views. But at the time of decision making on Tuesday, having gone through all the detail in the report, I couldn't myself write a motion, and was wanting to see what others would bring forward. No one else has brought anything forward, and that's why we're in the position we're in. So that's my explanation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Spears.
I totally agree with the comments made by Councillor Murtagh. It's a very difficult position, and the Director of Education's mentioned the other 9 rural schools. I'm very conscious that the biggest part of our district is rural, and we really need to protect these areas and communities. So I would certainly move against the proposal.
Okay, Bailey Buchanan.
Thank you very much, Convener. First of all, the reason I didn't bring forward an amendment to be honest with you, I've not had any discussions with any of the two other major groups. And to be honest with you, I thought that there was an amendment coming from either one of them to ensure that this school is retained. Listening to Jan in the beginning, it's quite right that this area, Blackness, that the school is a community hub, and therefore I'll have no intentions, and I'll be supporting anybody that decides that this school must be retained. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to the vote.
Thank you, Convener. And we have a motion moved by Councillor Sinclair and seconded by Councillor Devine, which consists of the recommendations in paragraph 2 of the report. And just to clarify that the vote is for or against the motion. Councillor Meikle-John.
For.
Councillor Bowes.
For.
Bailey Buchanan.
Against.
Councillor Bundy.
Against.
Councillor Devine.
For.
Councillor Garner.
For.
Councillor Hannah.
For.
Bailey Kerr.
Against.
Councillor Murtagh.
Against.
Councillor Nimmo.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Redmond.
For.
Mr. Seal.
For.
Councillor Sinclair.
For.
And Councillor Spears.
Against.
Convener, there are 10 votes for, there are 5 votes against, and the motion is carried.
Thank you for that, and I thank everybody for their contributions, and indeed I thank Jan for coming along to present to the committee today. I appreciate we've just had a recess, however I'm going to take a short recess just to allow our education colleagues to be able to depart, and we'll come back just in about 5 minutes. Okay, folks, we're back on live stream. If we can come back into the meeting, please. We're now on item 7, which is the visitor levy. We take the paper as read, and I will open this up for questions. I will begin by asking Mr. McGuinness just about the potential for impact, positive or negative, on the Falkirk area in relation to those that are providing accommodation, but also the positives of the income and what that could be used for.
Thank you, Convener. This is very early stages of the visitor levy, as you see in front of you today.
Sorry, Convener, the sound's dropped out.
Apologies for that. You'll not hear me, but I've picked it up.
We can hear you, Convener. We just couldn't hear Michael.
All right.
No.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Much improved, thank you.
Thank you very much. So apologies for the microphone there. Yes, so as I was saying, there are a number of pros and cons related to the visitor levy that a paper presented for you today to start the journey in terms of consultation. The important factor from my perspective in terms of economic development and growth is this allows resources to come in to the council over and above our revenue budget to improve the facilities, to improve the environment, to improve the offer to our visitors, to encourage more visitors to come into the economy, to spend their money in the local area, to go into our towns, to experience the kelpies, the wheel, the number of different and amazing attributes we have across the council area. I suppose the greatest challenge is probably just in terms of the systems and the processes for those businesses that will be impacted upon this. We are working very closely with the improvement service to bring in a system that is as simple as possible to ensure the journey for those businesses that will be impacted upon collection of the levy is minimal. So we're working very hard to ensure as and if we progress this, that journey is as simple as possible. We do have a number of studies that have been carried out across Europe in particular about the impact on visitor numbers where a levy has been introduced, and the evidence is quite clear that it does not have a negative impact. That's the evidence we have received and reviewed through one of our specialist consultants, that it does not have a negative impact. In fact, there are a lot of anecdotal evidence that the investments and the improvements that have been made due to the levy have made it a more welcoming and attractive place to come and visit. So the evidence that we have seen has indicated that overall the evidence suggests it's a positive experience by the investment made from the levy back into the tourism economy across the local area. Happy to take any further questions.
Thank you for that, Mr. McGuinness. I'll just open it up for any other questions. Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, Convener. Michael, you've highlighted the anticipated income, and I've already asked the question. Can you maybe break down to the number of hotels and bed and breakfasts we actually have?
Thank you very much, Councillor Nimmo. I do actually have that detail to hand. If I can walk over my laptop. We approximately have up to 100 beds. 800 people bed nights in the area. We have short-term lets, 130 short-term let properties. We have 40 self-catering establishments. We have approximately 28 hotels at this point in time. We have 5 guest houses, 3 caravan sites, 3 hostels. We've got exclusive venues, which I don't categorise simply, 2 of them, 2 campsites, and under construction are approximately 10 additional properties that could fall into the levy as it moves forward. So quite a significant number within the area.
Okay, thanks for that, Michael. Can you maybe just confirm how much we're spending on this specialist consultant as well that you mentioned?
Can I defer to Charlie, my Regeneration and Tourism Officer, regarding that?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, this was an initial background research study that we commissioned Professor Lennon from the Moffat Institute to carry out, and that was in the region of £5,000 to carry out this initial study.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Spears. Councillor Spears, I think you're still on mute. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can I ask when the consultation will start with the hotel owners, bed and breakfast and motel owners, as having spoke to some of them myself, there is more than great concern.
Thank you, Councillor Spears. Absolutely, they are the lifeblood of the economy for tourism. So hotel operators and bed and breakfast, etc., will be a key part of the consultation exercise as early as possible.
I just hope that it doesn't jeopardise any future hotels starting up in the district, as they're much needed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spears. I've got Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. Given that this is straightforwardly starting out in a consultation process, clearly there was no need for us to take any position. But I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the kind of options that a visitor levy scheme, if it was to generate the kind of income that you're talking about, the kind of options that might be brought to councillors to decide on.
Thank you. You will see within the paper at 5.13, page 272, details of a range of different interventions that could be utilised, that the fund could be utilised should it be successful, ranging from street cleansing to improving public realm, to improving events and cultural programmes, dressing up the town. So there's a range and a number contained within 5.13 within the report. Happy to answer any questions regarding them. Clearly, the start of the journey is a consultation exercise to determine which areas we believe would best benefit from a levy fund, and that would go back to members for consideration in due course.
And if I may, just supplementary to that, can I ask, have you got plans for the detail of the consultation process, and will the consultation also include about the things that the money might be spent on?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hannah. I don't have specific plans. I may pass that to Charlie, who might have plans in his head. We will absolutely be consulting on how that funding is used. So these are examples we presented today, but part of the consultation will help us clarify exactly what our community and business community in particular would see where this fund could be benefit the visitor economy most fruitfully. Maybe pass to Charlie if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the process would be that we would work with industry and community to develop a draft scheme. So the draft scheme then sets out the potential uses of the funds, and that's what we then go out to consult on, and then we work with industry. Other local authorities, for example, have created what they call a shadow forum. Once the levy is in place, you must, as part of the legislation, have an industry forum that has oversight and feeds into how the levy is managed and developed. But most local authorities are creating that forum at this stage before we even move to developing the scheme and entering into consultation, so that there's a representative group there to help shape all of this from day one.
Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. Has there been any analysis done on the additional costs and resources that would be added upon small independent businesses with this levy?
We have some anecdotal evidence in terms of Edinburgh as they have progressed. They're more advanced with their processes. We are considering, and again, this will come out through the consultation process, should there be an element within the levy fund to be retained by the businesses to support the additional administration burden that's placed upon them to collect the levy. So that is very much a part of the levy itself, could be retained by those businesses that believe that have an additional burden on them. But that's very much will form part of the consultation exercise to determine what would be appropriate apportionment of that. But we do absolutely recognise that there is an additional burden on the collection of this levy should it progress.
Well, thank you for that answer, Michael. Do we also know what our neighbouring local authorities are considering regarding a visitors levy? Is there an opportunity that they might not take it to get that price advantage?
I'm not aware of that situation, but again, Charlie, he's been speaking very much with Edinburgh University, Edinburgh District Council, and he may have that information to hand.
So currently, Edinburgh City Council is further ahead than anyone else across Scotland with the visitor levy. So they've actually entered into their 18-month consultation or notice period, I should say. I'm aware that Stirling, Perth, Argyll and Bute, Highland, Glasgow and now Aberdeen City are all developing a visitor levy scheme. They're all pretty much at the stage that we're at, maybe slightly ahead, where they're now creating a levy scheme. So far, most local authorities are considering a 5% levy. Aberdeen City are potentially proposing a 7% levy, but across the board in terms of the Forth Valley area, most local authorities are now considering whether or not to proceed with a levy and entering into a levy scheme development phase.
Thank you for that answer. And my final question is regarding if the scheme comes into place. Charles, you were saying that there would be a separate bank account and then there'd be an industry forum to help dictate how that would be allocated. How would membership of that forum be decided?
So it isn't set out in the Act. It's not set out in the Act exactly how it should be created, but it must be representative. So I think that would be part of our internal working group to work up exactly how that would be shaped, but it must be representative. So you would expect to see local authority membership there. You'd want to see tourism bodies, but most importantly, you would want to see representatives from all different sections of the accommodation sector as well, from hotels, B&Bs, guest houses. There's also representative bodies and groups such as the ASSC and the Scottish Tourism Alliance and other bodies that represent areas of the accommodation sector within Falkirk that you would almost certainly want to involve in that group.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
Thank you. I think as partly answers my questions, which was going to be about the learning that we had done from other local authorities who'd also embarked on this route. But from the ones that you mentioned there as well, I think my question would be too about whether there's been any discussions with those local authorities specifically around us, not just Stirling, but Clacks, Fife, North Lancashire, West Lothian, etc. As you know, in terms of going forward, those who are most closest to us, obviously the impact if we lose visitors, that would be most irrelevant there. So I wonder whether we kind of have had discussions about what others might do, and whether there's a kind of way of almost doing something in a kind of collaborative way in order that there's a kind of coordinated approach to ensure that everybody is benefiting, if you see what I mean. So I'd be grateful for some sort of clarity on that.
Okay, Charlie.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are in regular contact with the local authority partners and discussing it with Highland Council last week. There's moves now to effectively have local authorities who are looking at visitor levies, meeting on a regular basis. We're already sharing information all the time on this and learning from each other, but maybe formalising that so that we've got a regular series of meetings to learn from each other and share our insights. And I think we're in a good position in that there's a number of local authorities that bit further ahead than us, so we're able to learn from each of those stages as they go. I think in terms of the competitive element of it, I would say from the research that we've got and the examples, as Michael mentioned, from across Europe and the rest of the world, introducing a visitor levy around 5% or around about that value, there is no evidence to say that it influences visitor choices as to where they choose to stay. It's of an amount around that 5% where it shouldn't be too disruptive to the market in terms of decisions that visitors make, but it's also of a volume that would be worth pursuing for a local authority.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think those are really important points, and in general, I'm very enthusiastic about the visitor levy, and I've accepted it whenever I've been abroad, and see it as a positive thing. I suppose the report is taken as read, and the briefing was extremely helpful. But I have noted some misconceptions in the public about, what this is about, and that, it's been explained that it's about, it applies at a hotel, as residential accommodation at the point of sale. It would maybe be helpful, just because of some of the misinformation out there, to clarify this is not about charging for visitors to visitors attractions or anything like that at all, and it's intended to raise revenue from external people coming in and not to hit constituents within the districts locally at all. It's an external charge purely for residential property, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go to Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. Michael, do we feel that this tax will benefit tourism in Falkland?
That is certainly our intention. That's the area that my service works within. So we're looking at economic growth, tourism growth. We have a strategy that was approved 2 years ago to look at how do we expand the offer to improve the offer in the area. And I would certainly hope that a significant proportion of this funding goes directly to impact positively the tourism experience and attract more visitors to the area.
Thank you, Michael. So is this a similar tax to what we would come across in some countries when we go on holiday?
Very much so. I've had the experience of it in Spain and Portugal myself. As you per bed night, there's a tax associated with that. So yes, a number of the economies across Europe have applied this tax to visitors.
Probably my last question, and it leads on for Councillor Mustard's question about people coming in, but it will only just affect people coming in if a local person goes to stay in the hotel, they'll get that extra 5%. If it is, that'll affect them as well, won't it?
Thanks. This is why the consultation exercise is very important. Right, okay. There could be circumstances where somebody has to come for hospital visits, for example, and they come and see an elderly parent, as an example, and they then need to stay the night. So we would look at that and consider, through the consultation exercise, would that be an eligible area for exemption? So it's to consider those circumstances of the visitor and the reason they're here, and would we believe that would be exempt. The process we are considering, and as example is in Edinburgh, is that the levy would be applied and they would claim a rebate depending on their circumstances. We recognise that a number of visitors to our economy are workers. So again, there would be as part of our consultation to determine if workers would be eligible or would they be exempt. And that's very much part of this exercise to make sure we are absolutely clear on where the levy is applied. And as Councillor Mutter made a very good point in terms of, we've got a piece of work to do to communicate and educate in terms of, this is not impacting upon our local community. This is about people coming into the area this levy is applied to. but the consultation will certainly flesh out those ideas.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michael.
Okay, I think we've got Keir Stevenson also on the line, and I think he's maybe got something to add to that. Keir?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Keir Stevenson, Economic Development Manager. So just in addition to what Michael said, there's an example in Edinburgh where they've put a cap on the number of nights that they charge as well for workers in other kind of areas like that. So they've put a cap on of 7 nights of the charge would only be applied for the first 7 nights of those days. So that's another option, as well as a full exemption that we could look at as part of the consultation, as Michael pointed to. So just add that, Convener.
Thank you for that. Okay, we have no further indications of any questions to officers, so I will move to the report. As this paper clearly sets out the opportunities presented by the new Visitor Levy Scotland Act, which gives local authorities the power to apply a percentage charge to accommodation bookings within their area. Accommodation businesses would collect levy payments from their customers and return these funds to the local authority at set intervals throughout the year. Currently, we're aware of Edinburgh, Stirling, Perth, Argyll and Bute and Highland councils, who are all at varying stages of developing or considering introducing visitor levies to their areas and basing their schemes on a 5% charge, with Aberdeen being one that's looking at a 7% charge. There has been discussion amongst the Forth Valley authorities in relation to this, and Stirling and ourselves are at a very similar stage. Clackmannanshire do not have any significant level of accommodation and therefore are not considering taking this forward, but there is that collaborative work happening across the piece. The 5% figure is largely considered as being manageable within the market tolerance, whilst realising enough funds to create a meaningful, significant investment opportunity. The early assessments indicate that the annual fund of between 1 and 1.5 million could be realised using a 5% levy fee as a basis for the assessment. And these funds raised through Leicester P must then be held, as has been indicated by Michael, in a separate bank account and invested in services or facilities largely used by visitors to the area. Those investments will also enhance for our own residents as well. Implementing visitor levy requires consultation, economic inequalities impact assessments and significant preparatory work within the council with accommodation operators. And at this stage, the committee is only being asked to approve the development of a draft visitor levy scheme for Falkirk, including consultation engagement, the outcome of which would be taken to a full council meeting for consideration. Draft scheme will set out a structure for the Falkirk levy, including any exemptions, collection methods and spend opportunities. Spend opportunities should be driven by the existing strategies and plans and contribute to the tourism and economy and visitor experiences. This process is quite a long process, and it can take up to 2 years for that consultation and then the implementation period subject to the members' approval. The levy income to the council will only be available mid-2027 should we agree to taking that forward. So I would therefore move the recommendations as outlined in section 2, thanking the officers for bringing this forward and for the work they've done so far, and we'd hope that that will help to support some of our financial challenges going forward, and hope we can have a very positive consultation process and allows the relationships with our operators to develop as part of the tourism process. I move the report. Councillor Garner.
Echo the words of yourself. Happy to agree.
Okay, thank you. There is no amendment, but I will go to others for comment. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. We have no amendment. This is about a consultation process to enable us to have more information to make a decision. I can't think of any reason to not do that. The decision on whether we implement a levy will be for the future, as will be the decision on what we actually do with any money raised if we do implement a levy.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr.
No comment.
Councillor Spears.
I certainly look forward to the consultation as it's caused a great deal of concern within the industry, at present, and I hope it doesn't affect future investment in hotels and motels being brought to the area.
Any other independent colleagues? Councillor Buchanan? Sorry, Bailey, apologies, Bailey Buchanan.
No, thank you very much. Just state, obviously, everybody's got an opinion. My personal opinion is that this would be really negative. Having speaking to some of the people that would be involved, that I've not spoken to anybody yet that would support it. What we should be doing is to expand and developing the tourism issues in this area. We should be looking at other areas within the district to support. We've got a lot of areas of interest that haven't been supported, but the fact is that I couldn't support this, and I would like it noted that I'm totally against this. Thank you.
Okay, I'm afraid as it's only Bailey Buchanan, there is still a consensus in the room. Therefore, we agree the report.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 8, which is the development plan scheme. And before we move into questions, can I remind people this is not about site specifics, it's very much a technical report, and can we please stick to the nature of the report, and if we do stray there I will stop people and bring them back, but I'll now open it up for questions. Nope. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I wonder if officers could say maybe a little more about the development plan process. I mean, it seems to me that this has significant impact and will have significant impact over a long period of time on the decisions that our planning committee will make. So I would just like to hear a little bit more about the process of consultation to ensure that we get the development plan right, and then the process of implementation.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hannah. You are correct. This is a very important piece of work, a very important process we need to go through to determine the future of our Falkirk Council area. I'd like to maybe bring in Alistair Shaw, lead officer, who is working directly in the process of bringing forward an LDP3. Maybe Alistair can explain the process to Councillor Hannah and elected members.
Yeah, happy to do that. It's a lot. It is a long process. It's a process that's set out fairly rigidly in legislation. So all the steps are there that we have to follow. So we've negotiated the first major stage, as I've outlined in the report, which is the evidence gathering and the evidence report stage, submission of that to Scottish Government, and the assessment of that, and its assessment as being sufficient. And that's an important hurdle that we've negotiated. So now we move on to the proposed plan stage, and again that's a fairly lengthy and involved process. We have some significant stages of consultation as part of the development of that. We have a call for sites exercise which has already started, a call for ideas which is community facing, which will be running until May. We'll then have a kind of an options consultation that will basically publicise the sites and options that have come in through the call for sites process, and allow opportunities for communities to comment on those. And then once we produce the proposed plan, it's approved by full council. There'll be a further formal consultation. So 3 stages in that development of the proposed plan. Thereafter, there's an opportunity to make modifications to the plan in response to representations. There is likely to be unresolved representations, unresolved issues. So then we send the plan off to again to Scottish ministers, and there is an examination carried out by a Scottish Government reporter to look at those outstanding issues and representations. And then when that is reported, we can come back, and it comes back to the council. Generally, the recommendations of the reporter are binding, and so we make those changes, and then we are able to adopt the plan. So it's a long and involved process, but it's a very important process, and that's why there is so much scrutiny and so many stages and so many checks and balances within that process.
Thank you. You say it's a long and involved process. I wonder if it'd be possible just to have an idea of the timescale we're working to when this will actually be in place.
So again, there's a timetable set out in the report and in the document, the development plan scheme itself. At the moment, our estimate is that it'll be spring 2028 before we have an adopted plan. So that's a substantial period taken for the preparation of the plan.
Thank you, convener.
Okay, thank you. As there are no further questions, I will go to Councillor Garner.
Thank you, convener, and thanks to Alistair for that explanation. The Falkirk Local Development Plan is one of our most important corporate documents, steering the location of development, infrastructure and investment in the area and providing the framework for planning and decision making. Members will be aware that the Council has started work in the latest iteration of the Local Development Plan, LDP3, which will shape development across the whole district for the next 10 to 15 years. This technical report before the Executive today presents the annual development plan scheme, which explains the plan process, highlights progress over the past year and sets out an updated future programme for plan preparation, including a participation statement showing how the public and stakeholders will be involved. As regards progress over the past year, I'm pleased to report that the LDP3 evidence report, which was approved unanimously by Council in October, has passed the Scottish Government gate check, allowing us to move on to the preparation of the proposed plan itself. This is a major milestone in the successful culmination of over a year of evidence gathering and consultation with the public, businesses and key agencies. The focus of the next year and a half will be on developing the proposed plan. This will involve developing a long-term spatial strategy for the area, which takes account of the national policies and priorities set out in NPF4, whilst addressing the local issues which have emerged through the evidence gathering stage. Importantly, there will be extensive opportunities for communities as well as developers to feed into the proposed plan. Firstly, a call for ideas and sites is being undertaken, which went live at the end of January and will be open till the beginning of May. Secondly, there will be an opportunity for communities to comment on the sites which have been submitted for consideration through the call for sites and the ideas exercise. And finally, once the proposed plan is approved, it will be subject to a formal consultation prior to being finalised and sent to Scottish ministers. Elected members will be kept informed and briefed throughout this period. Preparing a local development plan is a long process, as we've just heard from Mr Shaw, but the report confirms that the Council has made a sound start. The draft development plan scheme sets out a route map to plan adoption, which includes a comprehensive programme of engagement, and I would commend the committee for approval. I would like to thank officers for their continued support in progressing a new local development plan, and I fully support the development plan scheme in front of us today. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. I'm happy to formally second. There is no amendment. I wouldn't anticipate an amendment on the plan. However, I will go to colleagues very briefly for any comment. Councillor Hannah.
No amendment. Thanks to the staff who've put a huge amount of work into this.
Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, convener. Just the next stage of the process, the long process. And we're at the proposal stage. Just for this stage, it takes 2.5 years, so it's a long process, but the important part of it is the call for sites, then the consultation with communities and elected members, and that is very valuable because that will dictate where the new housing will be, and the future of Falkirk depends on a big part of this document, and it's not just about housing, it's about the full aspect of the local development plan. So it's a massive part of our future. So looking forward and exciting to see what proposals come forward, convener. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Spears.
I'd just like to say that having worked on previous plans with Alistair Shaw, we are in good hands. Grangemouth, I hope, will be a major part of future development, as we're going to see a loss of all a great part of our industry this year. So maybe the timing of this plan is perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, Convener. I have no amendment, but I think it's really important to state that they're similar to Bailey Care. There can be few pieces of work that are more important to the future of our district than the local development plan, as is evidenced by I'm sure there was new records of 15,000 hours of planning committee yesterday, where these issues were pertinent to all decisions we make, and I think that's crucially important that it's highlighted at committee stage that although we might not be putting up amendments and asking many questions, this piece of work is critical to the future of our whole district and everybody that lives in it, and I'm grateful to the staff for the diligence and the effort that they put into it because it's crucially important. Thank you.
Bailey Buchanan.
Thank you. Just to say that I'm happy to support this process, and could I say at this stage, just echoing the sentiments Councillor Spears, I've been I think Councillor Spears is the longest serving member, well over 30 years. I'm over 30 years as well. We've known Alistair Shaw for a considerable period of time, and Alistair Shaw is one of the finest professionals that this council has ever had. The work that he does is absolutely unbelievable. I remember years and years ago to all the public consultation meetings that he organised in community centres all over, and I would just like to say, and I get a big thank you to him on behalf of our communities for the work that he undertakes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, everybody. Are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Item 9 is the revenue financial position 24-25, and I will open it up for questions. No questions. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. Not so much a question, but to ask if there's any kind of further update. You've made this reference to teacher numbers, reference to other things that have been a bit uncertain. It's just if there's any updates for us.
Amanda.
Thank you. For 24-25, the position around teachers is settled. It was settled at the end of last year when Scottish Government confirmed that there'd be no adjustment to the grant and that all the local authorities would get grant whether or not they had met the 2023 target. So that's now been factored into the information in front of you today.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I will just move to the report. As we are heading into our budget meeting at the beginning of March, much of the information is already been shared with elected members. However, what this report does indicate is that there has been some significant savings made in year, but we should be very mindful that much of that has come from one-off savings and not recurring, and is not something that can be continued to be relied on going forward. Leaves us still in a very challenging position, but that is then for us to look at as we head towards our budget setting process. Our risk register still highlights that the financial sustainability of the council is a high risk and will remain a high risk for some time yet, and that's something that we have to keep in mind as elected members as we start to make our decisions going forward, and to deal with and manage our structural deficit until to get to that financial sustainable period. There has also been some challenge around the HRA, and there's still a risk around that, and the need to protect as much as possible and rebuild some of the reserve within that going forward, and that will continue to come with its challenges, as indeed we are still facing high costs and high borrowing costs, which also impacts on our revenue budget. So I think I don't want to say very much more than that, as we will have our budget setting process, and I'll move the report as it is for noting.
Content to cautiously second you.
Thank you. Okay. There is, obviously there's no amendment, but if people wish to make very brief comment, and I do ask for brief comments, Councillor Hannah.
No amendment, just thanks to all the staff who've worked hard to achieve this.
Billy Kerr.
No comments.
Any of our independent colleagues? Councillor Spears.
I look forward to seeing greater development, and I wish the team working on it every success.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment from any other independents? We're happy to agree the report.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Item 10 is the South of Scotland Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure Partnership. And I can't even say the acronym for that, so I'll just stick with that and say it once. And we'll take the report as read, but I will open it up for questions. No questions? Oh, Councillor Redmond.
Just a quick one on this. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more electric cars on the road going forward. I think petrol and diesel cars are going to be getting phased out. So, do you think this scheme is ambitious enough, and will it be meeting the demand for this going ahead?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, this partnership is based on a strategy and expansion plan that we've worked up through our term consultancy with WSP for ourselves and Click Manager Council. That is based on projected growth of electric vehicles in the area, and the numbers included within the report will meet the forecast demand.
Thank you. And if the council is going to be owning and operating any of these, will there be a kind of net revenue to the council from that?
At present, we are projected to maintain the electric charging assets at Falkirk Stadium, with the tariff in place looking to cover the costs of that operation and any future warranty and maintenance issues that could arise. As part of the procurement exercise, we are looking for a revenue share from the operator to come in. So there will be some income to the council from the operation of that contract.
Thank you. And just a final question. I think on the briefing you described how there's various different types of charging stations, whether it be fast charge, slow charges. Could you talk about the spread of that and the kind of advantages and disadvantages of them, please?
Yes. So there are three main speeds of charger that are covered in the expansion plan. So you've got your slow 7 kilowatt chargers, your 22 kilowatt medium chargers, and your 50 kilowatt rapid chargers. The plan for these will be deployed in areas that suit that type of charging. For example, in areas such as town centres where there's a high turnover of vehicles, that's where you'd put your rapid chargers. Whereas 7 kilowatt, which takes a longer time to charge, are more residential type chargers or places where there are long stay parking. So the distribution of these chargers will be based very much on geographical need.
Perfect. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Redmond, I'm just going to bring Ms Templeman in because I think she's got something she wishes to add around the finances aspect.
Thank you. It was just a minor point, just in relation to the comment that was made about the income. Just to say that in terms of this, the stadium hub, there is a TIF link to it as well, So we would just need to make sure that we've sort of accounted for that income properly in terms of that TIF project. So it was just to flag that. Thanks.
Thank you. That's much appreciated. Cheers.
Councillor Spears.
Yeah, thank you. This might not be in relationship to SOS EVSIP, but I think it's generally known now that electrical vehicles have quite a high carbon footprint. And are we going to be doing the same for hydrogen-powered vehicles?
Thank you, Councillor. At present, there is no either grant funding or projects looking at hydrogen-powered vehicles, at least for domestic transport. However, as that develops, it's something that we would consider.
Yeah. As you said, it's going to be for only highly populated areas. I take it that's areas that will need them most. But I would suggest maybe rural areas will need them because being trapped there is a lot more difficult. So is there any chance we can put individual points in each of our villages?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, the strategy and expansion plan as published has indicative areas, and this covers all settlements, not just our main urban population. Part of the funding involved in this project is to look at an equitable spread to ensure that rural areas aren't left behind when it comes to charging infrastructure.
Well, that's certainly good news.
Thank you, Councillor Spears. Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, Convener. My question is actually similar to Councillor Spears, and having read through the report in the EPIA, it's specifically, I mean, obviously in terms of the rural areas is one aspect, but one area where I would be keen to ensure that we continue to have influence specifically in the strategy is in areas where, for example, we have council housing which cannot take domestic charge points, and therefore I think that there is ability for us within the plan to be having specific influence and to be looking at particular spread. But has that been factored in where there aren't opportunities, for example, when we've got lots of flatted dwellings and there's no opportunity to have on driveway, etc. chargers, that we take that into account in the strategy of where chargers are deployed to ensure that our own residents are not disadvantaged from this? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, again, looking at the type of chargers, the locations are very important, as you rightly point out, but there are plans within the expansion document that looks at the availability of things like on-street parking, on-street charging, so that for people without a driveway, they will still be able to access electric vehicle chargers. We're aware of the number of properties that do not have driveway access, and would like to use this project to tackle that, to make sure that they are not left behind.
Okay, I'm grateful for that answer. I think, although the EPI is certainly a lot better than many I've seen recently, I think that perhaps because there's no public consultation in it, and because I know we can't identify service users, but I think that just capturing that issue, because it is an issue it can be an issue related to poverty, because obviously it tends to be that those living in those types of properties may be those who have not got the income of others, and as electric vehicles become more accessible and more affordable, the issues about being able to use some of the more expensive commercial motorway service type charge points, it does become an issue if we as a council can't provide that with our own housing. So I'd like to maybe see that a little bit more reflected in the scheme, and when we're having those discussions and finalising it, would be welcome if that could be reflected. Thank you.
Okay, we've got Bailey Kerr.
Quick question, Convener. When we get to the stage where we're 15, 20 years, will the grid be able to cope with it?
Thank you, Bailey. Yes, it's part of the key engagement of the delivery of this project will be with our DNO providers to make sure that the grid can cope. There's been a lot of work done to date, especially in the central belt around grid capacities, and there's no indication that we will not be able to expand in the way planned because of grid constraints.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. It's just a quick question. I read in 7.14 on page 330 just the risks that have been highlighted, but one risk that I've thought of and just wondering if it's been taken into account is if the usage of electric cars is lower than projected, is there a financial cost to the council for oversupplying when there's an under demand?
Under the owner-operator model, if we continue to operate our own EV chargers like we do just now, there is that potential. However, with the operating model of a third-party operator coming in and running EV estate, then that risk is shifted onto the operator.
Thank you for that answer.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll just swiftly go to Councillor Garner to move the report.
Thank you, Convener. I nearly had a slightly flippant question regarding the name of the actual scheme, south of Scotland, when there's Falkirk, Kilmainham and Fife involved in it, but I won't bother with that one. This joint procurement approach will provide a single supplier and coordinated deployment of EV infrastructure across the region, which will ultimately reduce the level of risk to the council and benefit the user. It is anticipated to leverage around £3 million of investment for EV charging infrastructure across Falkirk and Kilmainham councils. The additional investment in infrastructure helps provide equality across the region, with future EV points being made available in less commercially profitable locations. This approach is positive for the council in that it minimises financial risk and capital requirements, ensures a consistent, resilient and equitable EV charging network, supports the council's net zero targets by accelerating EV adoption, reduces officer workload through centralised procurement and management, and provides the council with a share of future revenue generated. In general, a positive direction and more joint venture with other local authorities, which I welcome. Happy to move the report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garner. Councillor Sinclair?
Yeah, content to second, thanks.
Okay, thank you. There is no amendment, therefore I would ask for brief comments if anybody wishes to make them in relation to the report. Councillor Hannah?
No comment.
Bailey Kerr?
No comment.
Councillor Spears?
No comment at present.
Any other member, independent member wish to comment? No? We're happy to agree with the report?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Okay, we now move into our different hat for today, our quasi-judicial role.
I'll pop out for 2 seconds because I'm coming up to the 4 hours and they're going to charge me extra money for my car sitting charging. I'll be literally 2 minutes to unplug it. You can go on.
Okay, we want to continue because we have time pressures, Councillor Bowes, and I want to give people a lunch break
No
as
problem.
well. Okay. We move into our quasi-judicial process and we have a suite of community asset transfer items. The first of which is the community asset transfer of Lauriston Community Hall, and I will go to Mr Ketterick.
Thank you, Convener. As has been noted, we now enter a quasi-judicial number of papers, the first one being Lauriston Community Hall. The purpose of the report is to consider the community asset transfer for the hall to Lauriston Community Hall at the Thrums, who are a registered SCIO and are therefore suitable to make the CAT transfer. The report seeks agreement by way of a 20-year full repair and insurance lease at £1 per annum to the group, which reflects the benefits that will derive from the project. The application and business case have been reviewed by officers and are compliant in terms of our statutory obligations under the Community Empowerment Act and the disposal of land regulations. The assessment outcomes for all non-financial elements were considered either strong or very strong, and overall the benefits were deemed very good. with a series of strongly positive outcomes for community health and wellbeing, and a clear demonstration of supporting a positive approach to community empowerment, regeneration and development. The application has been validated and progressed through the appropriate statutory evaluation and notification process. As outlined in the report, if agreed by executive, a decision notice will be issued, incorporating the provision to bring the lease to an end if the subjects are not used for the permitted use for a period of 1 year. In addition, to support the viability of the community asset transfer, an enablement fund grant request of up to £90,614 that will support capital improvements, and if agreed, will be offered to the group subject to the further assessment and conditions outlined in the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kettrick. I'm happy to move the report, but I'll open it up now to any questions or any comments. Bailey Kerr?
I was going to ask Hannah if she wanted to second it, but
I'm kind of waiting on somebody.
I'll second the report and she can second the next one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For that. Are we happy to agree?
Agreed, and congratulations to the group and to the staff for all their hard work.
Okay, item 12 is a community asset transfer of Earth Community Hall.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to consider the community asset transfer for Earth Community Hall to Earth Community Hall Group, who are a registered SKIO and therefore suitable to make the CAT transfer application. The report seeks agreement to transfer by way of a 25-year full repair and insuring lease at a rental of £1 per annum to reflect the benefits that will derive from the project. The application and business case have been reviewed by officers and are considered appropriate and compliant in terms of the Council's statutory obligations. And the assessment also identifies either a strong or very strong of all the key elements, and the benefits are deemed to be very good, with a series of strongly positive outcomes for community health and wellbeing also. The application has been validated and progressed through the appropriate statutory evaluation and notification process, and as outlined in the report, if agreed by executive, a decision notice will be issued incorporating the provision to bring the lease to an end if the subjects are not used for the permitted use for a period of 1 year or more, as outlined in the report. In addition, to support the viability of the community asset transfer, an enablement fund grant request of up to £25,077 will be offered to enable capital improvements, and if agreed, will be offered to the group, subject to the further assessment and conditions outlined in the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kettrick. I'm happy to move the report as it is, but I'll open it up. Councillor Bowes?
I'm happy, in fact I'm delighted to second this report, and I really wish that the committee for Earth Hall do extremely well with it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Murtagh?
Yes, I was also happy to second the report. Unfortunately, Councillor Bowes not quite back in the seat by the time I put my hand up, but I'm sure we all wish the committee every success and know the work that they've done in getting to this point, and I'm sure they will make a success of it. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, happy to agree?
Agreed.
Okay, we move into the final ones, which is the community asset transfer of Bonnybridge Community Education Centre. Mr. Kettrick.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of the report is to consider the community asset transfer for Bonnybridge Community Education Centre to Bonnybridge Community Hub, who are a registered SKIO and are therefore suitable to make a CAT transfer request. The report seeks agreement to transfer by way of full ownership for a consideration of £1 to the group, which reflects the benefits that will derive from the project. The application and business case have been reviewed by officers and are considered appropriate and compliant in terms of the Council's statutory obligations. The group's business plan was judged to be strong, covering all the necessary areas, and officers have concluded that the trustees have the range of skills and experience that will strengthen the management and operation of the facility. The application has been validated and progressed through the appropriate statutory evaluation and notification process. As outlined in the report, if agreed by executive, a decision notice will be issued incorporating the right of preemption for the Council based on the provisions outlined in the report, which are actually at section 7.17 and not 7.16, as noted in the recommendations. In addition, to support the viability of the community asset transfer, an enablement fund grant of up to £317,442 that will support capital improvements and will in part provide match funding towards energy efficient improvements that are being part funded through Scottish Power Energy Networks. If agreed, the groups will be offered up to this amount, subject to the further assessments and conditions outlined in the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Keswick. Happy to move the report. Bailey Buchanan.
I would like to, is it okay for me to second you on your motion there?
Yes, as there is no other, no one else has indicated, so you're first.
Right. Well, I'm delighted, and like everybody else that's been working in their own communities, I would just like to congratulate the small group who took this on. Could also say this, that I would like to thank Mr. Kettrick. Mr. Kettrick came out to the initial meetings in the community centre and probably was looked on as the big bad wolf. But Mr. Kettrick has showed such true professionalism over the period of time that this has come to fruition. The Bonnybridge Community Centre has always been, as far as I'm concerned, the best community centre in the area. It's always been well used, and it is well used, and I wish them every success. I'd like to thank everybody else for their contribution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bailey Buchanan. Just to remind people that Councillor Redden has absented himself from this particular item. So you can maybe put your camera off just till we get the approval, Councillor Redmond. Sorry about that.
So hide my face.
Okay, colleagues, are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
Okay.
Convener, could I just say at this stage, apologies, but Councillor Redmond has been instrumental in supporting this all the way through as well, and he deserves recognition as well. Thank you.
And that's part of the reason that he was in the position where he had to absent himself for this particular item. And that, I was in a similar situation myself on a previous occasion. It's just one of those things. But yes.
Thanks.
Okay. We're now on our final item, which is a community asset transfer of the Green Park Community Centre, and I'll go to Mr. Kettrick.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to consider the community asset transfer for the Green Park Community Education Centre to Polmont Community Hub, who are a registered SCIO and therefore suitable to make a CAP transfer request. The report seeks agreement to transfer by way of full ownership for a consideration of £1 to the group, which reflects the benefits that will derive from the project. The application and business case have been reviewed by officers and are considered appropriate and compliant in terms of the Council's statutory obligations, with the business plan being judged to be strong, covering all the necessary areas, and officers concluded that the trustees have a range of skills and experience crucial for the management and operation of the facility. The application has been validated and progressed through the appropriate statutory evaluation and notification process, and as outlined in the report, if agreed by Executive, a decision notice will be issued incorporating the pre-emption provisions outlined in the report, which are at section 7.15, as opposed to 7.16 as noted in the recommendations. In addition, to support the viability of the community asset transfer, an enablement fund grant request up to £150,000 that will support capital improvements will be provided to the group, subject to the further assessments and conditions outlined in the report. Happy to take any questions.
I would be
happy to remove the report as is. Councillor Hannah.
I'll be very happy to second that. This major congratulations to the Polmont Community Hub. They've put a tremendous amount of work into getting themselves to this stage, and I've been happy to give them guidance and support in doing that. Also, a major thank you to the officers who have helped the Polmont Community Hub to get to this stage, Paul Kettrick and the number of other officers who've been involved. So thank you very much to all, and good luck to the Polmont Community Hub.
Okay, thank you. Are we happy to agree the report? Okay, That brings us to the end of this morning's meeting. We're now in the afternoon. Just thank everybody for their contributions, and those that wish to go and grab a bite to eat, we'll be back here for 2 o'clock for council.
Thanks to the chair.
Thanks, Convener.
Thanks.
Council.